gentlemen, boys and girls, we're glad you're here. And we're going to try to keep you awake. I know it's after dark and it's so warm out there, but we're going to have a good time. I'm the ancient astronaut, by the way, as you can tell. These are my two sons I'd like to introduce to you. I started this business in 1966. The original 7 astronauts are still there. And we new guys helped the guys that were flying to get off the ground. And so we would come down here and check out their lunar modules and all their other spacecraft and do the things they didn't have time to do. So I've got a lot of friends down here, and they're all retired now, of course. And we had a motto, and that was, the older we get, the better we work. So that's what I'm here to do. You wouldn't have to do that, of course. All the equipment that gets launched comes here first. And sometimes it comes in individual pieces, and they all get checked individually. And then they take them over to the vehicle assembly building and put them together, and they have to check them all again. Take them out to the launch pad and check them all again. And so there's folks down here doing some really mighty fine work, and managed to get us off the ground safely for a long, long time. And will also in the future. A lot of folks ask me, because I'm one of 6 guys who flew both the Space Shuttle and the Apollo capsule. And what's the difference? Which do you like to do the best? And I thought, well, since this is the Cape, this is a good place to answer that question. So what we're going to do today is we're going to go from liftoff to orbit in both the Apollo command module Saturn combination, as well as compared to the Space Shuttle. So let's be on our way, and take the first slide, please. And the next one, please. Thank you. Okay, this is the Saturn V rocket, the Werner von Braun's rocket, and it's the rocket that would take you to the moon and back. It's got 3 stages. If you're just going to Earth orbit, you just use 2 of those stages. Like the one that's laying on the side out there, that's the Saturn I. Just takes a command module into orbit. The Saturn V takes the command module and the lunar module to the moon and back. So if this thing is too big to fly, I thought I'd go out there and during test and checkout on the launch pad, my specialty was lunar module, and that was right up in here. And I'd go out there and I'd look at this thing, and I'd say, this thing will never fly. So big, so big. And perhaps you've been out at the Saturn V Center, I don't know, but you have an appreciation for how long and how big this is. It's longer than a football field, goalpost to goalpost, by 3 feet. And so it's huge. And it's made out of 3 stages, and I'd just like to point out that these stages are all stacked up on top of each other with a center line going through the center, which makes a difference in the ride. And this has 5 huge engines down below that each develop 1.5 million pounds of thrust. The whole thing altogether with fuel, and it's mostly fuel, by the way, weighs 6 million pounds. So with 1.5 million hecto-pounds of thrust, that's what happens to get off the ground. One difference is the kind of propellants that we use in the Saturn versus the shuttle. And the Saturn, we didn't, at that point in time, use liquid hydrogen for the fuel. We did use liquid oxygen for the oxidizer, and when it talks about fuel and oxidizer, the fuel would be like the gasoline in your car, that's what you burn. But it has to be added with air, and the oxygen and the air combines, and that's the oxidizer. But in this case, the fuel is called rocket propellant, RP1, actually it's like kerosene. So kerosene and liquid oxygen. Later on in the shuttle, we'll get the liquid hydrogen and liquid oxygen, with a little more advanced. And when we get out to this launch pad, we have in our mind 3 or 4 different ways we can get away from this thing if there's a problem. And we train for all those things as well. And one of the major ways, of course, is to use this launch escape tower. We'll talk about that in a minute. There are other ways as well, depending on the development of the gravity, the danger of the situation. It may be just a bad day that day, and they just can't launch, and so they come and pick you up and take you to the back to the launch control center. But normally what they would do is they would leave a armored personnel vehicle out here that we could get into and drive away if we had to. So when you go out here, there are 3 people who help you get settled in your strap this rocket on your back, and then they go away, come down the elevator and leave. You're out there all by yourself, swinging the breeze and saying, well, I hope it's a good day today. You feel things going on down below you there, valves opening and closing and all those kinds of things. But if you had a real emergency, you have certain things you can do depending on the gravity of the situation. This is the white room that when the vehicle is sitting on the ground, it matches up to the hatch, and that's where the astronauts last go to have their suits checked to make sure they're hold air and all that sort of thing, and then they help you strap in the capsule and close the hatch and leave. Now, if something bad happens or something questionable happens, you have 3 escape modes aside from doing this launch escape tower. And one of them is to just come down the elevator and get in this armored personnel carrier, start it up, and drive it as far and as fast as you can. Another way, if that wasn't likely, and you couldn't do that, well, then there's a tunnel at the very bottom of this that you get into, and you slide down into the guts underneath the launch pad, and there's a room down there, and a room that's riding on cushions, and it'll hold not just 3 people, but maybe 30, because something like this could happen when the people are out here working before the launch. And so it will handle a lot of workers as well. And it has a self-contained room, has food and oxygen and water, and you can be protected down there for a day or 2, and then they'll come and get you out at the bottom. If that doesn't seem feasible, you don't have time to go down that elevator. They're up right here. There's a basket on a cable car like hooked to the launch platform, and you can jump in that, release yourself, you get on this cable about a quarter of a mile to the ground, and another armored personnel vehicle there to get out of the way. So we have several of those kinds of things that we practice before we go on one of these launches, so that we know what to do in the event that sort of things happen. Now, I pointed out earlier that we have 3 stages stacked on top of each other, and so it's kind of a symmetrical, we call it a stack. And so we ignite the engines on the first stage there about 9.5 seconds before liftoff, and we can feel them down there coming up to speed, and things are shaking down. It's being held down by 4 arms all around. There's 2 of them right there. And if the computer says everything's okay, then those arms release you, and you're on your way with a big thump, because this thing on the bottom is going to catch up with whatever all the metal above it, and it's going to cause it to expand and contract like that, and it kind of damps out by the time you get to the top. It doesn't shake you right or left and right and forward and aft like the shuttle does, but it's a thumping pogo stick like a ride until you clear the launch tower. And then after that, it's usually a pretty smooth ride. Every once in a while, you can feel that engine surge, just like you're stepping on the accelerator Mercedes. Makes you feel like you're really riding along. And this first stage burns for 2.5 minutes, and that's going to be shut down just before Lousa gets to the bottom of all the propellants. You don't want to have a bad mixture of fuel and oxidizer, because it'll explode. So they shut it down before that happens. And so it's about 2.5 minutes. And by this time, however, you're moving off the ground at a fairly great rate, and it's pushing you hard in the back and going through 100,000 feet or so. And all of a sudden, the engine shuts down and throws you forward in the straps, quite violent. And we couldn't simulate that in the old days because we did not have motion-based simulators then. So we just had to take the word we heard from the guy who just did it, but you never had a chance to feel what it was like. But you knew it was happening, but it kind of surprised you because it's more heavy than you had thought it was going to be. So it throws you forward in the straps, and then we have the world's largest can opener. It's a rope of explosive that goes around the whole stage there, and it then can be ignited, and that explodes and it separates you from the bottom stage, the big disc of metal that goes in that direction. And then you have to wait for a while for the empty stage to float away, to fall behind before you ignite the engine on the second stage. And that seems like it takes a lot longer than it really does, but it's this reassuring feeling to feel those other engines take hold. And then the second stage burns for about 6 minutes or so, so they're longer than the first stage. But the same thing happens when you want to separate the first stage or the second stage from the third stage. So those are some of the mechanics that you feel, and it's quite a lot different than you do in the Space Shuttle. The Space Shuttle does not have what I call this staging mechanism, where you shut down one engine before you can start another one. It has these two solid rocket boosters on the side, but the main engines on the Space Shuttle are ignited on the ground and then never shut off until you get almost to orbit. The only sort of staging part of it is to get rid of the solid rocket boosters, and that's an interesting event, but nevertheless it's not what I call the real staging, where you shut down and reignite. So let's take a look at from the top down what this beast looks like. We just got liftoff here in the Saturn V. These swing arms were attached until just before a second or so before liftoff, and then they're retracted, and see they're on their way out of the way. They're going to swing back this way. They have to have a way to continue to add propellants into the fuel tanks before it goes, because the liquid oxygen, for example, is supposed to be kept at about minus 460 degrees Fahrenheit, something like that, to keep it liquid. And since we have such hot weather and it's not totally insulated, that tends to boil off. And so the boil off is directed away through pipes away from the spacecraft, but you have to replace that. So the swing arm does that. The same electrical power. You don't want to use your onboard electrics because you want to use those in space. You want to use it. You want to use what's on the ground until you have a liftoff. So there's another swing arm that has that, and then the third one, of course, is the crew compartment swing arm. So those red things are just on their way. They're moving away. We just got liftoff with this thing, and this getting ready to go on its way. Now this is the top of the third stage right here. And on the top of that, we have kind of a conical section. That's where we keep the lunar module. And it's fastened to the third stage. And then that conical area is fastened to the service module. And then this goes over, of course, to the command module where the crew is. And this is the escape rocket. So this service module has all the kinds of things you probably have in your garage or basement at home to keep your house running. It has some thrusters on it. They have to have propellants, fuel and oxidizer, plus a nitrogen compressor on those tanks in order to make sure the propellants will flow. It also has the fuel cells in there that generate electricity. There's 3 of them. They combine hydrogen and oxygen and convert it into electricity or water. And then, of course, you have to have the hydrogen tanks and oxygen tanks for that. There's a lot of telemetry in here that is going to tell us about the health of the spacecraft as we're in space. And there's a communications antenna in there as well. And finally, there's a pretty large object called a